So in total, we had 8,863 people play in the Next Fest. So of those 8,800 people, 4,600 left feedback. It is really priceless to get this kind of feedback. First initial thing, what players thought of at the current state of the game was 8.12, which is incredible. Like, for obviously, I'm assuming that people are also being a little bit generous there in those reviews. Like, that's the only thing that makes sense, to me at least. But I am so grateful that that you guys like what this game is. Most importantly, for me at least, and for Dominik as well, like for both of us, was this second one, which is how much did the gameplay live up to your expectations? For a long time, I've had this very clear idea that using like really intricate mechanical animations and stuff like that is a great way to kind of present gameplay mechanics. And I've always been like, in almost 20 years in the game dev industry, I've always been kind of pushing that idea of more diegetic interfaces, more like interacting with machinery, and more like complex mechanical animation, because I love it. It's very satisfying. And I've had this theory that other people do as well. So that I was confident about from the beginning that people would like that part. What I was quite always kind of concerned about and kept me up at night is the other side, like the in-depth kind of triangulation and planning out a mission with lacking information, because that's very uncommon in games. And in fact, like when I would show the game to anyone, any of like my other professional developer friends, other people from AAA companies and stuff like that, they were all giving the feedback that like it's really unclear. Like it needs to be way clearer, way more straightforward. Like the map needs to be an LCD screen, like showing where targets are, and that was just never what I wanted to make. So there was like this big kind of pressure. And Dominik will say, like, the moment that I saw when the demo started, I saw like people kept playing, and I saw the concurrent users going up, but they weren't stopping playing, was the first moment since I started development on this where I like breathed like a pressure off, because it means that like both halves of what we're making here, people like. And that was that I can't describe in words how amazing that felt. Because as many of you probably have noticed, especially the ones who played during the Nest Fest, it's really hard to describe or present in a video or in text or screenshots the gameplay of Iron Nest, like around the map. It's really hard to describe. Like even something as basic of just how fun it is to triangulate a target. Like it's really simple. We all can try to figure out how to do it. It's quite intuitive, but it's really hard to like, if you show a video of that to someone, it's not satisfying. It's not really that, doesn't look fun necessarily. But when you do it, when you translate something and then you shoot and you're like, holy fuck, I was right. And like, there goes the neighborhood. It's a level of satisfaction that is very hard to present. Like this is this was very interesting, very important to me. And one of the kind of things that I track and observe the most of how long it takes players to complete the tutorial missions, because that's kind of a very nice aggregate of how clear the objectives that they have are. So a vast majority of people ended up within like the 1 hour. 50% of people in total were within 45 minutes to an hour, and then 14% at 30 minutes, and another 10-20% between an hour and 15, an hour and 30 minutes. And this is like, I'm really happy with this. That was roughly my goal. So moving on, where did it fall short of your expectations? This was kind of crazy. Like the amount of people that just said no, but it didn't, is nuts. But there was also some really good feedback. Like it is a bit repetitive. That's true. And especially in this demo, because it was still lacking more functionality. This was also an interesting one about how hyped you were before and after playing. Before playing an average of 8.15 and after 9.17. Obviously, like out of 10, it's always everyone scores out of 10 in their own way. But what I found really interesting about that is how universally it went up. Like it turned, like how hyped were you after is a very clear, very smooth kind of logarithmic curve, but how hyped you were before is kind of all over the place. So like I think that this reinforces what I saw up in the beginning here, which is that the game lived up to the expectations and the gameplay was good. And the next question is, after you completed the tutorial, what did you want to do? 74% said continue playing. And we can see this from the average playtime. If we jump back in here, you can see median playtime. Over 80% of people played more than 1 hour. And remember, like 1 hour was about the time of the tutorial. So we can see that it is true. Like a vast majority of the people, here at 87 of the demo. Remember the demo, people played the demo version for 3 days more than they did the playtest. So of the demo, it's 87% that played more than an hour, which is here, it's just well above the average as compared to other Steam demos. I've never seen that before. I didn't know that there was a well above the average. I'm used to seeing this one like above average, but yeah, this is well above average. What did you misunderstand first? This is kind of a hilarious one. The most common mistake was measuring and planning on the map, and turret rotating. And what I suspect, based on the meme and the people I watched, that a lot of people made the initial mistake of they figured out where the target was on the very first mission, and then they dragged the measuring, the bearing and distance measuring tool from the target to the nest, and then inputted the results and fired. But if you measure the bearing from the target to the nest, it means the nest is actually going to be aiming 180 degrees away from the target. And this actually ended up being a meme that someone made in the Best of Recon contest, which won by popular appeal, which makes me think that this is definitely the exact misunderstanding that kept happening. This is something that I've added in. So you may have noticed that recently I added in a shell trajectory prediction kind of tool that when you fire, it will show, like it tracks the rough direction that the shell would be going. And the reason I did that is just to help reinforce to a player that when they shoot the wrong way, they can see that trajectory tracker going towards the bottom left corner of the map, and it helps them understand like the mistake they made. What did people like about the experience? Kind of like universally across most things. Things that were least liked here, least liked is different than most disliked. That's in another question, but the least liked was the receiving of orders and mission design. And that makes sense. These missions were all like just placeholder missions that like my initial tests of how to display the tutorials and stuff like that. So they will all have already changed dramatically and will continue to do so. Pulling the trigger is really nice up there. Seeing impact locations on the map was by far the most satisfying. What people didn't like. One of the big ones, the receiving orders on the mission, so that tracks up here. I think also a big part of that is just there's a lot of text. It's not fun to read a lot of text, and the way the mission text was designed, I think made it harder to understand than necessary. Some of you who have played more recently have noticed that I've moved the spotter locations into their own section. So like first we say spotter 1, 2, and 3 is at these locations, and then in the text we reference where, like reference from spotter 1, but you already marked spotter 1 on the map. So that makes it a bit easier. Also, since then, I've added in the ability to select specific lines of text to copy to your clipboard instead of just to copy everything, and also the ability on the clipboard to delete specific lines of text. So those two have, I also think will make that receiving orders part a lot easier and easier to understand. Audio was also something that a lot of people didn't like. A lot, 7%. It's not that much. It was unfinished at the time. It still is. And I'm still planning a full overhaul of the audio, at least 1 or 2 more passes.
What biggest mistake we did while approaching the playtest during the February, the Nest Fest, My ones, it's the way how we did it. I'm really sorry, guys. I know that it wasn't the most optimal way to organize the playtest. I mean that we've been doing that through the Discord. Like, I do not want to go too much into the details, but in general, like, multiple factors influenced this, that we weren't able to do it regularly through the Steam. So I'm really sorry that we did it that way. I'm so happy that you were that patient when the bot was dying, when you weren't able to redeem the keys, when everything was going against our favor. You were so patient, and that saved us all. So basically, yeah, that was the biggest mistake of those playtests from my side when it comes to the entire organization.
My biggest mistake is what led to that. So this is a much more technical thing, but on Steam, when you put up a product on Steam, before launch, it has to pass a series of reviews by the Steam staff, and that takes between 3 to 7 days. But it's possible to fail the review process, and I didn't leave enough time for that failing of the review process. So this is like 3 different mistakes on my side. So first of all, to be able to do a playtest event on Steam, you need to have a playtest store page approved and the playtest version of the game approved. This I knew I wouldn't have time for, because that's 3 to 7 days plus 3 to 7 days. Like, we didn't have enough time to pull that off before the event. So I decided, like, we'll just give away the keys. But then I ran into the problem that you can't give away keys to a playtest if it hasn't been approved. Like, you can generate keys for the full game and for the demo, but not for playtest. So that's when I generated the 5,000 keys for the demo, and I thought, okay, that should be enough. Like, that should be more than enough. And then I saw in the first 2 days that like 4,000 keys were gone already, or 3,000 keys. I was like, oh fuck, we need more keys. I tried to generate more, and Steam said, no, like, you're not using the demo for what it should be used for. You should be doing this via the playtest version. But because I thought I'm not going to go live with the Steam playtest, I don't have time, I didn't get the playtest version approved in time. So now I'm pushing the playtest version's approval through to be able to get keys for it. And that took a few days. And it took 6 days because it failed the first time, because I pushed it through approval without actually uploading the version of the playtest. So I committed to Steam a playtest version for them to playtest that was 0 bytes, like an empty folder. And I didn't realize that until 3 days later when Steam responded to me like, bro, this is just an empty folder. And then I uploaded the proper version, and that passed the first time. But that's why we ended up like having that gap in between of like a few hours where no one got keys. And once again, thank you to �̬𝘓, because something that you guys didn't see is that behind the scenes, the bot could only hold 1,000 keys at a time. So there were moments where �̬𝘓 was uploading 1,000 keys to the bot, sleeping, and putting an alarm for 5 o'clock in the morning to wake up to put 1,000 more keys in the bot. So right now in chat, like 5 minutes ago, someone made the joke that 40% or 40% of the community is German autists, 40% of the community is Russian autists, and 20% of the community is just other autists. We have the numbers here. Ta-da! You're actually right. Like, first of all, Americans. But Americans are by far the biggest percentage of people on Steam, so that's kind of normal. But then second, it is Russians and Germans in terms of wish listing of the game. And the reason Russians have caught up was because of here, a community video from a Russian playtester they put out, like, went super viral. So yes, and when I say Russians, I mean like Russian speaking stuff, yeah, Russians and Kazakhstan and stuff like that. Thank you so much, guys. Once again, like, I don't have words to thank you enough. This is crazy.
My question is, what are the chances of co-op in this build?
As many of you probably already know, my plans are the next game will be designed from the ground up to be able to support co-op. In this game, it probably isn't ever going to be a thing. At least I don't want anyone to be expecting it. Once I've made progress on the next game's co-op functionality and architecture, I will be looking into seeing if I can upgrade this game to be able to support some of that co-op functionality. However, no promises there, and I definitely don't want anyone purchasing the game expecting that to happen. But I will make my best effort to try and make it happen. If it does, in that case, it would be like about a year after launch or so.
My question is, will there be autographs on the Gamescom?
Yeah, I will be at Gamescom, and we'll see. We don't know if we'll have a booth yet. We've applied to the Indie Arena to see if we get Indie Booth Arena. We'll see if we get a booth or not there.
We are thinking really serious about the release to 1.0 in between July and the August. And Gamescom is pretty close to this date. And usually you have to do a lot around the release. So basically, this is like the biggest question mark, like how smooth the release will go, how many things we will need to fix and cover. And if everything will go well and according to the plan, and that's the plan, then we even think about organizing some event for you guys on the Gamescom. But this, like, it is really initial plan. And it's better to say more later rather than disappoint you.
So the question is, will there be Steam achievements?
My general philosophy around achievements is to not make them like general progression stuff. Like, you beat mission 4. We'll probably have those achievements anyway, just like, why not? But I definitely want to make most of the achievements around like more fun and interesting things. Like war crimes, civilian casualties, the Geneva checklist. And what's your suggestion?
Maybe add like an internal counter that the developers can check for how many shots have been fired at certain locations, so the community can celebrate like, oh my god, we've shot like 1 million missiles or shells at this place. Hooray!
This riot was silenced 100,000 times. And,
yes!
And Mr.
Yes!
John, how the Mr. John is still standing.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. That's a cool idea. I'll need to think about that because I already have a system to detect like what kind of area a shell landed in for like the news reports in the newspaper. Like if it landed in the city or in like residential area and stuff like that, you get different articles. Maybe I could look at trying to tie that to some sort of system to update like some kind of global list to like a bot on Discord showing that. That's a cool idea. Thanks, man.
My only question, and I know you touched on it earlier, are we expecting another wave of playtests before full launch?
I will continue to be doing playtesting at the smaller scale, giving out the raffles and stuff like that to give out new playtester slots, but probably not another full-scale Nestfest event.
So my question was, is the game gonna cost money?
No, you'll pay with the souls. That's what we are expecting.
Yay!
You have a choice in between money and soul. If you give us your soul, we can give you the game.
Yes. Can I also sacrifice 10,000 human casualties?
I mean, yes, but that's expected of you. You don't get any reward for that. That's just necessary behavior. Like, no one's gonna reward you for breathing.
The price right now expected is something in between $10 and $15 with, so you'll understand us correctly, with the initial discount on Steam on launch.
My question is about that poster behind Nick. I would love to buy that if you guys are selling that.
This actually I didn't make. Siege, a member of our community, made it and shared it with me, and I thought that was so cool. Like, I had to print it out and put it on my wall.
Plus, I believe that we were sharing it somewhere. So if you want,
the images are pinned somewhere. And if you ping me in chat asking for it later, I'll send you the high res.
So my question is there any possibility or anything planned to like see and maybe explore a bit around the nest for like a little door so you can go out on a balcony and enjoy a sunrise or something?
Not in the first game, just because the moment I introduce going outside, then I need to make an entire outside environment, do all of that modeling of the environment and the optimization that comes also with having that environment there. So that's probably not something that will be in the first game, but definitely one of the major improvements I want to make to the whole game architecture and stuff is supporting a 3D environment outside the game, because that doesn't only allow people to like go outside on a balcony and have a smoke, but it also lets me introduce stuff like direct fire, like coincidence rangefinders and stuff like that, where you can use the map still, but you can also look out the front window, look through coincidence rangefinders, look through binoculars, go out, get out on top of the turret and look around to also find enemies and stuff. And that, I think, fits very well with the co-op direction that the game was always intended for. There is a door on the downstairs. I should probably remove the handle to it and have it like locked from the outside, just to like reinforce the fact that you're not allowed out of the nest.
So my question was, you've mentioned several times that you're breaking up the dream game into multiple games, and this one is just the first of that. So how much of that is a metaphor, and how much of that is real? And what is this? What does that dream game look like?
It is completely real. Like none of it is a metaphor. As with everything, like whenever you have an idea, or I assume, maybe I'm just insane. But every time I have an idea, it's always a very big idea. And the idea that started Iron Nest was this idea that you and a group of friends are in a walking Dieselpunk kind of map, and you're on a massive map and you're exploring that map. You're looking for resources and breaching through enemy lines. You have other friendly mechs that you can communicate to, and you also have hostile mechs out there that may or may not be tracking your position and so forth. So much kind of this grander kind of like clusters of friends playing on a much larger, more kind of open world map experience. At a much kind of slower pace than what you're used to from most multiplayer games. And it's more about, it's not so much direct PvP, it's more this co-op experience exploring with this kind of latent threat of maybe there's a hostile nest out there. Maybe it's been tracking your position. Maybe it's waiting for you to fire your next shot to like zero in on your exact location before it opens up on you. And having that kind of tension with a group of friends. The idea kind of first, it started really clarifying while I was playing Carrier Command with a group of friends. Just Carrier Command has that first part, like that group of friends, you're on a big map, you're exploring, you're moving your carrier around, you're capturing islands, you're getting resources. And what I really I liked that core mechanics and feeling, and that I wanted to put into a nest and have that moving around. So that's what it started out as. And just realistically, from a technical standpoint, that's a massive game. Like coming from like production direction and studio direction, like that's a project that would require 60 people and like 8+ years. But by cutting it up, I get to solve the other thing, which is what's the best way to interact with the map? I don't know that yet. And it's a lot easier to test those concepts in a single game and then move on to a new one. Because updating and changing a game's mechanics is rarely a good idea. Like whenever you change anything, like half of the people will like the change, half of the people won't like the change. So the idea of breaking it into games lets me try different things in a much more structured format. Like maybe the next game I'll change how the map works. I won't really change that because that's really good. I'm happy with that. But other things that I'm less happy with I'll probably change and explore other ways they work. Just comfortable environment to develop in where I can have a clean slate. Like whenever I want, I'm like, this is how much I'm going to achieve now. And then after that, I have a clean slate. And I can carry on and expand on as much as I want. And I can also leave behind and ignore. The dividing it into different games was just a purely pragmatic solution to how big of a game I wanted to make.
Do you expect that one day you will be able to finally reach that end goal, or is it just forever somewhere in this distance and can't be reached?
No, I definitely think I'll be able to reach it. Like as long as I don't need to take a job back working in AAA, then I will be working on this. And I think it's quite a reasonable goal to reach. I'm not sure how many steps it would take to get there. My current guess is probably around like 3 or 4. Each step would be less than 2 years. Just because I know my own like development cycle, that everyone who's on the Discord sees that I work 7 days a week, like 12 hours a day. And I know my own like focus level. I can maintain that level of like hype and grind for about a year. And then after that, I start getting really tired and slowing down and I need a break. And for me, a break is like launching something. It's not, I can't just like go on holiday if a task isn't finished. So that's kind of also the reason to break it up into games. So at least each new game will be around a year and a half. And yeah, I don't know. My gut right now is that probably in like 5 years, 6 years, that vision would be playable.
So my question is, if you've ever thought of putting simultaneous impact missions in, it's kind of one of the most interesting missions in artillery, and you do have 2 barrels to work with.
Yeah, that is actually something that we have been exploring and will probably be included in the full campaign. The biggest gating factor for being able to do really cool simultaneous impact stuff is just the rate of fire of the gun. Like realistically with modern artillery, you can get up to, I think it's like 5 shells in the air impacting simultaneously from a single artillery gun. And that's insane. Like the automated vehicle mounted ones. I think Germany has one that can get up to 5. But like, that's really cool. But with the rate of fire of the nest, it's impractical to be able to pull that off. However, simultaneous impact in the sense of like 2 shots landing at the same time, that, yes, I definitely want to be included in some of the missions in the campaign.
My question is, well, question and statement at the same time. I do love the gas masks. Those look cool. And I was wondering if at some point you guys are planning to like produce them as merchandise.
Probably not, but we can send you the link of where we got this one. Like, this is a really great reproduction.
Yeah.
Like, surprisingly good. We need to get affiliate links for it. It's a great aspect.
I have a genuine question about the mathematics. You mentioned that there's like a lot of math, and I just want to know a little bit more about that.
So
Like,
there is a lot of math in the sense of like triangulating targets and so forth. I give you the tools, however, to solve that math pretty easily in vast majority of missions. So most missions, or most of the more difficult missions, will be comprised of you receiving some bit of forward reconnaissance information. So the location of some spotters, and then bearings or ranges from those spotters to the targets. And then you use the map to measure out those bearings, those ranges, and try and figure out where the target is and calculate. If you want to go really in depth, take into account the margins of error in each of those reports, and then try to calculate a probability zone of like where you think the target is, and fire on that target. So that's kind of one end, like on the geometry side of it. But as I said, it's not like you won't need to take out a calculator and solve it. Like, you use the tools we provide for you. And then in terms of range,
I'll interrupt you. Until the ballistic calculator works, right?
Yeah, that's what I was ready to know. Now, the second part is in terms of calculating range and powder charges. And for that, I give you a ballistic calculator, which you can use to import your bearing and range and powder charges and get the gun elevation you need from it. However, that will definitely be broken in at least one campaign mission and probably in a challenge mission as well. So if you are really into kind of testing your quick mathematical abilities, there will be some missions where you will need to be calculating the required gun elevation and powder charge amounts to hit targets at different ranges. And I give you like a reference sheet with like a quick reference sheet that gives you like broad spectrum of ranges and powder charge and elevation amounts, and then you would need to kind of break that down to hit targets precisely.
What programming language is the game coded in?
It's almost entirely C#. I'm building in Unity, and Unity is a C# based engine. So yeah, it's almost all C#. Some development tools I've made that are like standalone tools for mission design and stuff like that. And those are normally C++ or something like that. But all of the actual game stuff is in C#.
My second question is, are you afraid of copycat games?
Afraid? No, because there's nothing you can do about it. And I think being scared of something that you can't affect is kind of a waste of energy. And I kind of wanted to. I want this to become a genre professionally that is unwise. Maybe I should want to like be the only one. But as a gamer who really likes playing this, I want other people to make these similar types of games. And I just kind of hope that it would be really great if in the final, like in 5-10 years, there is a whole genre of games like this, but the games that I make are still a notable piece in that genre.
For us, to be honest, it could be even beneficial if more of the games in this genre are getting released, so they are just gathering attention on this specific type of the gameplay. You know, you have to remember that all of those games, those are not like a multiplayer Fortnite games which you can play through, I don't know, 10,000 hours. There is like a limited amount of hours which you can spend in those games, and later on you are looking for more. So that's the funny thing with this, that maybe those copycats can be, at the end of the day, even more helpful to us than be danger.
So I was wondering if the gramophone in the Iron Nest that is to be implemented will have an ability for custom music files to be inputted, say, through browse Steam files. And would it be like accessed in some sort of immersion-friendly way where it's like a record case or a box?
Yes. That's my plan. Realistically, I'm not sure if I'll have that ready on launch or not. My plan is to maybe have just some folders in the game file where you can add a new folder, name it, put a single image in it, and put some song files in it. And then that record will just show up in the game using the image you put as like the central image on the record. That's my general plan. I'll see when I get that done. I'm not confident I'll have it done by launch, as that is very much a nice-to-have feature, but it is something I don't want to do.
With the added implementation of the button that lets you keep the window shutters open at risk of your own eyes, would it be possible in some forum to have like a very distant explosion or pume of smoke go off if your shell supposedly lands in front of you?
Technically, I already made that.
Oh.
Suppose it looked
wow.
like shit.
You surprised me.
Yeah, that was the original plan, and I already made that, and I already made it so like the explosion, like you see an explosion effect where the shell landed, like at a proper distance and everything. If you fired at like 4 kilometers exactly, it looked really cool. But anything other than that, and it really didn't. And it was just this kind of realization that to make that look good always and remove all the weird edge cases where it looks like crap would be, I think, just way more effort than way more time than I really had for this. It may be something that comes back after launch. Maybe I'll have some better idea at some point on how to implement that. It's definitely something that will be in the second game, because in the second game I'll have the whole external environment.
Do exist or will be exist Easter eggs?
There is already multiple Easter eggs within the game, and we'll be adding many more.
I want to ask if you thought about getting rid of the photos and just getting like message feedback saying target destroyed at this location or something like that.
There will be. So there's a few answers to that. Firstly, a big part of that reaction is also just the mission design. In the current like casual and challenge mode, the only objective is hit targets. Whereas in the campaign and in the other challenge modes, there will be more focus on hitting specific targets in specific places, and those won't always be right next to where you've just fired. So those are the moments where even if you have shot a lot of things on the map, you may still need to calculate that that target's location. And secondly, yes, there will be some missions, I think both a challenge mode and at least one campaign mission, that you don't get access to aerial reconnaissance photos every time you shoot. So you'll have to calculate every single target destination. And it's also possible that I will reduce the size of the recon photos, the number of photos you get per shell, and vary it. At the moment, you get 3 photos for every type of shell, but I may reduce it, like maybe only flare shells give you 3 photos, and the other ones only give you 1, or something like that. It's still, there's still definitely room for improvement there.
Well, my question is, will you be adding other mods?
Yes, we'll add in lots more. Like currently all you have is what's in the demo, where I have the challenge and chill and then the tutorial. But there will be a full campaign of between 15 and 20 missions, and then at least between 7 and 10 replayable missions. And by replayable, I mean like the challenge mode. You can play it many times over, trying to get a high score, and it's designed to be replayed. There will be at least like 7 to 10 missions like that. And they will be like the challenge mode and even more complicated and in-depth. The idea behind those replayable missions is more like there is a front line in a battle and you are affecting that war in some way, with lots of other like different engaging elements to it, like defending the beach landings, that kind of thing.
One question, if we can get the DLC that will call Iron Nest in the space?
Iron Nest in space. I've been considering, like, I didn't originally plan for DLCs, but I have been considering it a bit, and I do think that maybe we'll do some DLCs for each game that are more like campaign based, like generate like more campaigns, more missions, more ammo types, stuff like that. I don't know how exactly I would go about it yet. This is not really a priority right now. But I do think, at least it looks like, with this amount of people being interested in the game and the feedback we got from the playtest, that maybe people would be interested in having more content for the game, more missions to play, stuff like that, more campaigns, that kind of thing. So it is something that we're considering.
Question first, is it possible to add a more complex calculator?
More complex in what sense?
More,
Can you give an example of what you mean?
A calculator is more big. Big calculator.
Bigger with like more input options and stuff like that. It is possible. The final model isn't done yet, as you've noticed, especially with like the mission, mission card things where you select the different ammo types. I haven't. The big thing that will change the complexity of it is I haven't decided if different shells will have different weights, and you need to input like the shell weight to get the different ranges and stuff like that.
Yes, it's a very important detail.
Yeah, this is something that I'm still.
If I may interrupt you, because you went very, very quick through the card system, and I believe that not everyone is aware. So maybe you can.
Sorry. Yeah. So about the ballistic calculator, part of that is also it's not only calculating your ballistic trajectory of your shells, but it also lets you calculate and solidify a fire mission. So what you do currently is you select like range and bearing to target and how many powder charges you want to use, and then it gives you a gun elevation. But you also have a few other inputs, like you can select shell type, target type, stuff like that. But currently the only part that's really like part of the calculation is the ballistic trajectory, so range and powder charges. But yeah, I am considering making that more complicated, adding in like different shell weights and stuff that affect the trajectory. And also wind is something that I've been considering as well. I haven't made a final decision on it yet. I still need to kind of play test it a bit more and see how much time I have. But it's definitely something I am heavily considering. I think if done properly, it could be fun, but what I want to avoid is I don't want a situation where all that I'm doing is adding more numbers the player has to like input into the calculator. I wanted to, if I add more content to it, I want it to have more of a gameplay impact, and it's like more of a decision point is what I should say. So like shell weight is a good example. If some shells are much heavier and they require more powder charges or a higher gun elevation and have less range, that could be a good decision point, because then, well, if you need to hit a target far away, maybe you pick a lighter shell, like a normal HE shell instead of HCHE, which is lighter and it can hit the target sooner with less gun elevation, like those types of things.
It is possible to friends battle with us to see who destroy
like a challenge between a friend to see who can destroy the opponent first. That is something I've been considering. I think that this goes back to someone else's question about co-op, that maybe I could have some kind of simpler co-op where you're playing with a friend, but you're each kind of doing your own missions, but you see some information between the two. I'm not sure exactly how I would go about that, but there will always be leaderboards, and I will be adding leaderboards to all of the different challenge modes, so you will be able to compete with your friends in the leaderboard at minimum.
2 questions for you guys. One is something I noticed in the Nest test was we have markers from 1 to 8, but we were missing 9 and 0 to then maybe, you know, the mission goes on, you get more targets, and suddenly you have to mark target 12 with the marker 1 because you're missing alternatives. Will we get a solution for that?
Yes, I will be adding in more markers. I want to do something to change the way. I don't like my current marker solution. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to solve it yet, but I had some ideas of maybe giving you more markers and letting you like set the numbers on them. Or maybe I just give you a fuckload of markers. Like I don't know exactly what I'll do yet, but it is definitely a problem. I've run into it as well.
Somewhere.
No, there is. That actually, I don't think it was in
bolts.
Netfest. So I don't know if you've noticed, but on the right corner of the table, there was a whole bunch of bolts and nuts. I don't know if I made it work in Netfest or not yet, but you can move those and place those as well to mark things.
I tried shooting those to see if it's an Easter egg, but it wasn't.
That's a good idea for an Easter egg, actually.
Excuse me. Off you go. Second question is campaign scenario size. So far, we've been down in the southeast of Spain in the Cartagena regions. This is a double-part question. One is, how much of Spain will we get to see? And the second part is, will we get close enough to France that I can shoot at the French?
So the campaign, the plan is we'll be starting in Madrid. We'll head south and then up along the Costa Brava. And we'll probably not get close enough to France to shoot in the first campaign. However, I will also be adding in more challenge modes and the universe of Iron Nest. Like this civil war is kind of the beginning of the universe, but then from here it will spread out into the rest of Europe and then the world. And my plan is with each new game to be expanding the zones of conflict. And there will definitely starting in the next game for sure, you will be able to kill many Frenchmen. So
sure. May I greet the friend real quick? Hi, Talek.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Wanted to do that for ages.
Awesome.
Right. Okay.
Thank you so
that's
much.
My questions. I do. Thank you
so much,
Have a good
Daryl.
one. Ciao.
Bye.
When there's counter battery fire, is there in the current version some possibility to move your own nest so that you can evade this?
Yes, that's already been introduced. You have a few different movement options that you can execute through the requisition console. You can move to a specific location, which will buy you some time, but it doesn't stop the timer. And then you also have an emergency reposition, which will pause the timer. But then you end up somewhere that you don't know exactly where you are. So the idea is like, that's the like running to evade kind of thing. And then you have to do some calculations to figure out where exactly you are before you can start firing efficiently again. But yeah, that's already in this current version.
When you played the mission, you have basically finished your objective. Will there be new objectives added from High Command?
Yes, that's one of the other major changes that we're adding in now. All new missions are designed with more stages to them. Not all of them, but most of them are designed with more stages, so it feels more like an actual battlefield where you have some tasks. Given those tasks, as you're completing those, other tasks are showing up. The battlefield is kind of evolving as you're playing, with primary and secondary objectives showing up. And that's in the campaign, but also in the challenge modes as well. There will be more depth to the missions than what we have right now.
In the bottom of the nest, there's like a bed and a coffee table and stuff like that. Will there be more interaction possibilities in the nest, like maintenance and stuff?
There will be some more. I've already added the coffee machine works now, and the record player will probably also move downstairs. There won't be maintenance will be restricted to mostly just closing broken valves and burst valves, at least in this game. in future games, like once I introduce co-op, I do want to add more maintenance mechanics because then there's a lot more, well, you have more players to be doing more tasks. But for this game, most of the core gameplay is really centered around the map and the mission and firing the guns. So I'm not planning on having people running around too much, maintaining things other than closing burst valves and stuff like that I have right now, at least for this game.
You need to disconnect, Nick.
I can't, I'm so looking.
Yeah, left hand. Use the left hand. Bye.
Right. Wait, fuck, there was a second button.